Thank you very much for taking your seats. So now for a segment we call Business and Trilogy. And as it implies, we're going to hear from three speakers who will address us on various aspects of business and then sit down and take some questions. Our first speaker, let's introduce her. She's an award-winning specialist in culture, inclusion and sustainability with 9 years of experience implementing equitable and profitable strategic roadmaps across global, public, private and third sectors. She's advised His Majesty King Charles III and the government through her work with the King's Trust International Youth Entrepreneurship Board. She's presented on Radio 1 and BBC London, and she's featured in publications like Forbes and Vogue. Yes, it's you, you're smiling at me. I'm going to continue. Before we hear from Tskenya Sarah Frazer, let's have a look at her in action.
I'm so anti this idea that we need to niche ourselves down. People have been telling me for years and years, post more content, Tskenya, you should be a content creator, we need to see more content from you. Find your niche but be authentic. But how can I be my true authentic self but just talk about entrepreneurship? Just talk about being a corporate HR girly? Just talking about fashion and skincare when I'm interested in all of those things? And more, and baking, and gardening, and being a dog mom. This whole idea that we have to niche and water ourselves down is just to make us more consumable to the capitalist gaze and to whatever the hell this is. Remember, you are a multi-dimensional babes. You are not just a makeup artist, but you're also a talented dancer. You're not just a sales director, but you're also a fantastic baker. And you can be all of those things at once. So I guess we gotta post the content.
Folks, buckle up, buckle up. It's time to meet Tskenya Sarah Frazer. Hello to you.
Where's this clicker?
The clicker's here.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, who put that video together? No one told me that there was going to be a video. You folk doing my PR up here. I need you more. Because that was, I mean, I'm actually quite astounded. Thank you so much for that. Hi, folk. And good morning. It still is morning, right?
It is, yes.
Am I clicking it wrong? This is why I'm not a woman in STEM, clearly, because I don't know which way to click. My name is Tskenya Sarah Frazer, as the VT said, and when Carlton asked me to come and talk about something that is my special interest, Black British business, I couldn't turn it down. And I'm so pleased to be here in this room with all of you, because I stand on many stages presenting a lot of different things, but it's never in rooms that are this diverse, where I can truly be myself. So I'm very thankful to share this space with you all. So I've done a lot of things in my life. In my previous professional life, I ran a footwear business. I was a venture capital scout and I was a teacher. But in this professional life, it's broadcasting, social change and inclusion activism and consultancy work. And also I'm the author of the book that you can see up on screen there. But it wasn't always those things. My mum till this day is adamant that I knew what a neurosurgeon was at 4 years old. Good sis is not living that one down. She said, yeah, can you tell me you wanted to be a neurosurgeon? And I don't know if anyone else who comes from, Black diaspora, it felt like there were only a few things that you could be when you were younger. And that was a doctor, that was a lawyer. What other ones was there?
Accountant.
And then IT. And my mum had ticked off all of those other ones because she had 5 children. And for me, she said, I need a doctor. Sadly, I didn't quite get there. I got a thing against blood. But throughout my life, I was going to be a vet, then an accountant, and then a lawyer. I feel like a lot of young Black British girls dreamed of being. But it was never an entrepreneur. I never thought about myself in the business space, despite being surrounded by entrepreneurs, but people who weren't business owners in a traditional sense. My next door neighbor, she ran a I now realize, looking back on it, very successful, hair business, hair salon out of her living room. They were always on holiday, and I was like, this is Hackney in the early 2000s. I was like, how are they always flying back to Ghana and they're going Antigua and I ain't ever been? Anyway, I had uncles and other people in community had stalls in Brixton Market and in Dalston Market, but I had never imagined that to be entrepreneurship. And I feel like till this day, if you say to people, what is an entrepreneur? They won't ever think of people that look like myself or other people of the global majority. So that's why when I was 22 and I started my first business, which was a footwear business for people who had large size feet, I've got a size 9 foot and I really wanted to fix that. I thought I was a revolutionary. I thought I was going to come out here and start challenging Oprah. No one else does it like me. I'm that girl. And I launched my business on a crowdfunder, and we sold out within 24 hours because I had gone to different banks, tried to get all of these different resources, and I just wasn't getting the support. And I was able to start this business with a grant from the King's Trust. They gave me £4,000 for that, and we were able to raise another £5,000 on the Kickstarter. And as I was, launching this business, there were a whole different obstacles I was faced with. And there were these three main ones. A visible lack of intersectional representation. When we think about business, or when I was younger, when I was in my early 20s, I always thought it was the Lord Alan Sugar types. I never knew that it could be someone like me. There was a real gatekeeping of resources and funding. I was going to banks and being turned back. And then also a lack of systemic understanding. Now, all of us wear shoes, and I had started a footwear business, but even then, people would say to me, but why do we need large size shoes? I was like, because there are people who have size 9, size 10, size 11, size 12 feet that need stylish footwear. And so can you imagine how that's magnified if you're a person of color, a black person, or part of the global majority, oftentimes fixing a problem that is aimed at our community. But then as I did my research in true neurodivergent style, because I went in, I realized this was bigger than me. It was bigger than my experiences. We can see up here, 0.24% of funding went to black founders in the past decade. And if we get real intersectional with it, only 0.02% went to black women. What does that tell us about the landscape? We've got 9% of startup loans have gone to black founders, despite us talking all this morning about being the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs across the globe. 10% less likely to receive warm referrals or warm welcomes. And I've been a venture capital scout. It's real cold out there when we go out there looking for funding. And that's because people tend to invest in people who look like them. Mm-hmm. And then we've got 82% of those felt who, when they were speaking to folk who weren't black, they just didn't get it because they were solving issues that had to do with the black community. And then on top of that, whilst I was doing my research, I realized that there was a forgotten history. Now, that's me keeping it light and fluffy. I think it was a little bit more than forgotten. I think it's an actual intentional erasure of our history. I don't want to get on my Malcolm X-ish up here, but I think it's a little bit of a psyop. But anyway, I learned about people like Ignatius Sancho, here in the 18th century in Britain, very successful publisher and grocer. I learned about our good sis, Madam C.J. Walker over in the US, was our first female millionaire at a time where there was segregation. We're talking about the end of slavery here. And we've got our good bros over here in the UK, part of the Windrush generation, innovators around beauty, Dyke and Dryden. And of course, my ancestors, all of our ancestors, because we're all connected, those who came over as part of the Windrush generation that have contributed so much to our stories. And I realized it wasn't just me starting businesses. There were a whole host, and this is just a few, some of my faves, who have launched businesses here in the UK. And these logos that you can see up here are just a small snippet, just a small snippet. And so that's the reason why I was impassioned to write the book, because I wanted to make sure that we had a real accurate documentation of our history, past, present, and future here in the UK, of the ways in which we've contributed. I also wanted to make sure that everyone had a guide and a toolkit talking about the challenges and the ways to navigate, which is a really difficult space, and for us to have a view of the future. And doesn't the future look bright? When we think about the here and now, there's a true understanding of our power culturally and economically as black people, but those who are part of the global majority, right? We talk about our spending power. We talk about the power of our boycotts. When we say we're no longer gonna shop at Target because they wanna roll back DEI, they're crumbling, they're begging for us back. McDonald's, I didn't even know McDonald's do discounts. I've got a $1.99 through my door. They ain't done that since, the early 2000s, because they understand the power of our spending. And then we're also seeing a huge group of empowered entrepreneurs and business owners. I'm the youngest child with an age gap of about, 15 years or so. And so I've got nieces and nephews that range from 27 years old down to 4. And when I ask them what they want to do in the future, other than be a TikTok, create a star and be on the Forbes creator list, it's running a business. It's being an entrepreneur, because they've seen me do it, they've seen people in community do it, they've heard about fantastic conferences like this, they've heard about impact funds. So we're seeing a real shift in these conversations. And this is also backed by just some stats here. So we've seen a 30% boost in cultural and economic acknowledgement of the impact that Black individuals, and I'll go further to say also global majority individuals, have on the business landscape. Then we're seeing 60% of side entrepreneurs being self-identified Black women, with the majority of those women hoping to one day take those businesses full time. And then on top of that, we're seeing a 27% uptick of representation in executive roles. When we sometimes think about business and entrepreneurship, we think about us starting it, but I think there's some thinking also being able to climb those ranks and ladders in organizations too. And as the first panel were talking, they were talking about the fact that, you know, Black folk are 2 times more likely to start a business. And I think that that also has something to do with the systemic pressures that we feel in the corporate space. I think about myself, I think about so many entrepreneurs that I encounter on a daily basis. Why'd you start that business? Because I didn't want to have to keep talking to that junk manager. They're tired. We've had enough. So we think, you know, dirty junkers, that's how they move sometimes. We want to, and for those who don't know what that means, just very wicked person, cantankerous person. We don't want to deal with them. They lower our spirit, they lower our vibe. You know, we're forced into entrepreneurship, and that shouldn't be the case. Of course, entrepreneurship's great, but we should be able to thrive in businesses, in brands, and in corporations too. And so I guess I have a call to arms for all of us here today, and I think it's something that I really pride myself in, is making sure that we're all using our privilege. Earlier on, someone said, you know, I forget, I think it's the co-founder of Soul Mama, said, we need your participation. We need you to be supporting. We oftentimes think of privilege as being something that's reserved for those who are white, those who come from, you know, privileged backgrounds, by economics, those who are men, those who are straight, but every single one of us have privilege and power. And I make sure that I use my voice where I can to be able to amplify these issues. That's the reason why I kind of gave up my business. And I decided to focus on broadcasting and storytelling, because I think it's really important to empower a future generation. Then we've got supporting Black, but also global majority-owned businesses. Very poignant point earlier. Until I started a business and really started to support Black businesses, I didn't realize the importance of support actually showing up. Even if the service is a little bit terrible now and again, even if the package is a little bit late, these are growing pains, right? We're fresh out here. It's really important for us to give our communities grace and our allies to give us grace too. And also to make sure that we're keeping up our cultural competency and our economic competency. It's great for us to all gather here today and talk about all of these important and pertinent issues, but what are we going to do when we get home? Where are we going to put our pounds, and where are we going to have these bigger conversations? I finished on time for once, look at that. Thank you so much, folks. Thank you so much.
Tskenya, thank you. I love the way Tskenya said I was finished on time when I leapt on the stage. Thank you very much indeed. But no, it was a fantastic presentation there, some brilliant facts, a lot of energy, and you've given us a call to action.